everyone, myself Shweta and today I am going to present the presentation on organization of nervous system and neuron. So I started. These are the outlines of this presentation. First is introduction of nervous system. Second is cellular component of central nervous system. Introduction of neurons, structure and functions of neurons and types of neuron, then summary. So now started with the introduction of nervous system. So what is the nervous system? The nervous system is the master controlling and communicating system of the body. Nervous system it communicate and controlling body in human also. Nervous system control and coordinate all essential functions of the human body. Nervous system is controlling all the function and coordinate with other organ and all these things, so we have to be functionize or normal function through the nervous system. Now we see the organization of nervous system. What are the organization? What are the components of nervous system? First, the nervous system is divided into two components. First is central nervous system and second is peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system is consist brain and spinal cord, and peripheral nervous system is consist cranial nerve and spinal nerve. These are the components of the peripheral and the central nervous system. And central nervous system and peripheral nervous system is interconnected with each other. As you see in this chart, these interconnection, as you see, so this is represented their interconnection of central nervous system with the peripheral nervous system. Then again, peripheral nervous system is divided into sensory or afferent and motor or efferent. So what are the sensory response or sensory neuron in the peripheral nervous system? Sensory nervous system is activated by sense organ, just like general senses, eye, ear and nose. So these are the sensory organ. And then motor efferent included somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Then what are the division of peripheral nervous system of somatic? It is the involuntary. Somatic is voluntary nervous system, and autonomic nervous system is involuntary. Involuntary means it is not controlled by ourselves. It is a self control. We not control this system as your willpower. And somatic nervous system is controlled by our willpower. You will be understand easily with the example. So somatic nervous system's example is a skeletal muscle. So how the skeletal muscle work? When we want to a pen from a table, then what we do? We move our hand. Then what happen? The skeletal muscles will be moved. So this is the voluntary, because we control our hand movement as your willpower. And then autonomic nervous system's example is cardiac and smooth muscles and the endocrine glands. Cardiac muscles, we all know, heart is always pumping. We not control heart with our willpower. And the endocrine gland also secrete their secretion. We not control the secretion. It is not in our willpower. So the autonomic nervous system is again subdivided into parasympathetic and sympathetic. So what is the parasympathetic? Parasympathetic nervous system is it activate at the time of rest and digest, and sympathetic nervous system is activated in emergency and stressful condition. We understand this with the example. Sympathetic nervous system's example is whenever a big dog is come and we are scared. So what happened in the situation? We run from this situation. So at the time, what happened? We always want to fight with this, and fear and flight, all these response occur in our mind. So sympathetic nervous system is work on 3F formula: fear, fight or flight. uh, and the parasympathetic nervous system is activated when we are resting condition, when we are always in a peace moment, and all that time our parasympathetic nervous system is activated. Sympathetic nervous system, due to sympathetic nervous system activation, what are the changes occur in our body? First is, we started with the eye or pupil are dilate, because we are in a dim light, then we are scared. So what happen whenever we scared or we have to be fear, then our pupil is dilated and our heart rate is high, blood flow is high, and blood vessels will be constrict also, and then gastric secretion is decrease in the sympathetic nervous system activation, and renal function and renal secretion also decrease. And what are the increasing in the parasympathetic condition? The skeletal muscles movement and the energy providing on the skeletal muscle is, it will be increase. And the sympathetic nervous system, what are the changes during this system activation? Just opposite to the sympathetic nervous system, the pupil is constrict. In the parasympathetic nervous system, gastric secretion will be increased, because whenever we are resting condition, we have to be feel like hungry, not in an emergency stressful condition we not feel then we are hungry. So in this parasympathetic activation, we feel we are hungry, and we are um, going to the urine secretion, urine excretion. So in this condition, renal secretion also increase, and all the, or heart rate is normal on, and all these emergency situation, they are increases in parasympathetic condition, they are put in their normal condition in sympathetic nervous system. So this is the organization as you see in this chart. So now I am going to the briefly discussion about central nervous system and their component. So what are these components? First is brain and second is spinal cord. So first we talking about brain. Brain is divided into three divisions. What are the divisions? First is prosencephalon or forebrain, mesencephalon, midbrain, rhombencephalon, hindbrain. As you see in this picture, the darker area is this is darker area is known as forebrain, and midbrain is just this darker area is midbrain. Okay, and hindbrain, this is area is hindbrain. You understand with this? I explain you. Now the brain is subdivided into telencephalon. Forebrain is subdivided into telencephalon and diencephalon. So first we talking about telencephalon. What is the telencephalon? It consists of two cerebral hemisphere. These two lobes combine and make a brain. So these two cerebral hemisphere, it is known as cerebrum, and these uh, cerebral hemisphere interconnected with each other through the corpus callosum. What are the corpus callosum? It is a barrier, or it is a connector to the to both the cerebral hemisphere with each other, and it is also interconnect their information with one another. So we understand these through example. Whenever this corpuscalism is damaged, so what happens? The brain is, the two hemispheres are divided into separate, they're not interconnected with each other. So in this condition, the human have a as human have a one skull in a two brain. So they have a disadvantage this, and this is a disorder of corpuscalism deterioration. And what are the function of forebrain or the Diencephalon? Function first is memory and planning, and second is programming of response. जो भी रिस्पॉन्स हमारे पेरिफेरल नर्वस सिस्टम के थ्रू या उनके थ्रू आते थे, उनका क्या करता है, ये रिस्पॉन्स करता है टेलेंसेफलोन. नाउ द सेरिब्रल कॉर्टेक्स और ईच हेमिस्फेयर मेड अप ऑफ 4 लोब. So it is made up of 4 lobe. First, this is the anterior and this is the posterior side. So first anteriorly the frontal lobe is present, then the superior posteriorly the parietal lobe, and then posterior part occipital lobe is present, and the lateral part temporal lobe is present. So this is the structure of cerebral cortex. Now we discuss about the second division of forebrain. This is diencephalon. Diencephalon made up of thalamus and hypothalamus. As you see in this picture, this is thalamus and hypothalamus. Okay. So the thalamus is interconnecting center and relay station for sensory and motor response or motor information. When the spinal cord sensory information go through the cortex and coming their response to the spinal cord, they have a relay station that is called thalamus. So thalamus act as a relay station. Hypothalamus is a pea-like structure that control mainly complex behavior such as eating, drinking, sexual activity, and it is a part of limbic system. That is a very important. Limbic system. What is the limbic system? Limbic system is made up of hypothalamus or hippocampus, and it is a center that control human emotion. So this is the emotional center. Now midbrain. We talking about the brain division. First is forebrain and second is midbrain. The midbrain help in connects higher brain center to pons and medulla. What is the function of pons? Then midbrain. This is midbrain. As you see, this green, this is midbrain. It connect. This is pons and medulla. This is the part of hindbrain. It interconnect higher center of brain to this part of the brain. So it is very important. It acts as a bridge between higher brain center to the pons and medulla. And what is the function of the midbrain? It coordinate of visual auditory reflexes. This is a very important function of midbrain. Now the another division of brain is hindbrain. So includes the cerebral pons and medulla. Hindbrain किससे मिलके बनता है? Cerebellum, pons and medulla. First, the medulla. Medulla is the most primitive and lowest portion of the hindbrain. As you see in this picture, this is the medulla. And what is the pons? Pons provide link or bridge between the medulla and the cerebellum. This is cerebellum, this is medulla, and this is the pons. So it is act as a bridge or link. It interconnect medulla through the cerebellum or the rest of the brain. It is act as a connector. And what is the cerebellum? It is a little brain. It controls of body posture and equilibrium, and it present on the back side of the spinal cord. Alright, so this is the basic structure of hindbrain, and the medulla, pons and cerebellum made brainstem. They combined called brainstem, and brainstem is that area the cranial nerve arises through this brainstem, or the brainstem other parts. So this is a very important, because through the brainstem cranial nerves are arises. Now the other component of central nervous system is spinal cord. We talking about brain and brain's different divisions. Now we just focusing on spinal cord. So what is the spinal cord? A spinal cord is like a communication highway between the brain and the rest of the body. Communication highway, it acts as a communication highway. It communicates rest of the body to the brain. Communication with the body through sensory and motor neurons. So what they work? Just we see and we understand with the example. Suppose if you have injury at your body anywhere, so what happened on that part? There have a sensory neurons present on this particular area where the injury occur. So the sensory neurons go through the spinal cord to the brain, the higher center of brain, just like cortex and hypothalamus. And what happened that they have to be released response against the particular stimuli or the stress. So the response come. So the response just like this is the sensory neuron, and this is the skin part. They go through the spinal cord, the higher center, and what happened? They have a response through the motor neuron. So this response coming to the effective organ, and it stimulate their stress or whatever happening in our particular area of the skin or the body. So this is the best or basic function how to work spinal cord with the coordination of brain. Spinal cord is present inside the vertebra. And what are the regions of the spinal cord? First is the cranial region. As you see, this is the cranial region, and second is thoracic, T1 to T12, lumbar, sacral and coccygeal. This is the spinal cord present in the vertebral column, and that is the brain. Spinal cord connect with the base of the brain at this area. It's connect and continue as a tube like structure. And what are the, it contain all the ascending and descending tract. So now what is tracts? Tracts is a group of neurons. And what are the ascending tracts? Ascending tracts means these are the bundle of the axons. They carry information the lower side of the body through the CNS, and the descending tract carry information through the CNS to the spinal cord. So this is, as you see or we know, they go down to the up and they go up to down. So this is the descending and ascending tracts. Now we are talking about the cross section of spinal cord. As you see in this diagram, spinal cord is their cross section is there. So as you see the butterfly like structure, it is a gray matter. It is a gray matter, and other part of there is white matter. Now what is the gray matter? Gray matter is group of cell bodies, and white matter is group of axons. And then there is the dorsal root ganglion and ventral root ganglion, and through the dorsal root ganglion sensory neurons are arises, and through the ventral root ganglion motor neurons are arises. So this is a basic example of the central nervous, the spinal cord. So this is completed with this slide. Now we are talking about the peripheral nervous system, PNS. What is the PNS? PNS is nerves, neurons and sensory organs outside the central nervous system, and there is the function, collection and convey information from PNS to CNS. An afferent pathway of PNS is consist of all sense organ, as we discussed in that earlier the organization chart. We discussed the sensory organ, they are the general senses. Now the subdivision of efferent pathway of PNS or the peripheral nervous system. First is it is divided into somatic and autonomic. Somatic is voluntary type and its function is conscious control over skeletal muscles, and autonomic nervous system is involuntary type or the self control. Their example is control smooth and cardiac muscles. And autonomic nervous system is subdivided into sympathetic and parasympathetic, and sympathetic is activated with the fight and flight situation, and parasympathetic is activated in resting or digesting condition. Okay, so now the cellular components of CNS. CNS consists of two cells. First is glial cells and second is neurons. What are the glial cells? They basically called as neuroglial cell. Neuroglial cells are support and protect the neuron, and it provides nourishment to the neurons. It is very important because it's supportive cells for the neuron. Types of glial cells. First is astrocytes, second is oligodendrocyte, third is microglial, and fourth is ependymal cells. So these are the some examples of and some types of glial cell. It is nothing but it is some kind of important, but the very important nerve cell is neuron. It is a very important component of nervous system. Nervous system is a very classical pathway or very important pathway in our body. The neurons is a nerve cell, as we discussed. Neurons is a nerve cell, a functional unit of nervous system. It is a very important unit. And what are the structure of neuron? It is consist of cell body, soma. It is also known as soma, and dendrites and axons. Soma, it consists of nucleus, cytoplasm, and dendrites receiving or receptor zone of neuron. Axon is longest portion of neuron. Okay, so now the structure of neuron. As you see in this diagram, they have the dendrites. So what are the very basic function of dendrites? It's carry or its area there is a response generated, and this is the cell body or soma. It consists nucleus or the cytoplasm, and the axon is this is the axon. Alright, this is axon, and there is a axon hillock where axon is arises from soma, and there have a Schwann cell, and there have a nucleus of Schwann cell, and this is the myelin. Myelin sheath is very important because it can be a sheet like structure. It increase the conduction of neurons, and they have the node of Ranvier. It's very important in the at the time of action potential. The actions goes jump through one Schwann cell to another in the axon, and myelin sheath is provide very important role in the increased conduction of action potential in the neuron. And this is the neuron axon terminal button, And what happened? They that is the surface where synapse is occur. On that axon terminal, the another neuron cells, dendrites will be come attached with, and they have a synaptic function. And what are the synapse? This is a very important activity because it provides the action potential, and all these sensory information goes PNS to the CNS through the synapse, because it acts as an electric current. So there is a very important of neuron. The synapse is also known as junction between two neurons. All right. So now the types of neuron. First is we discuss about the structural classification of neuron. First is unipolar. Structural classification is unipolar, bipolar, pseudopolar and multipolar. Unipolar, as you see in this diagram, cell body is separate and the dendrites are in this condition. Dendrites are away from the cell body. And bipolar, they have a two axon and cell body in the center, and dendrites are away from this cell body, and it is they both are also myelinated. Myelin sheath is also present, but the pseudo unipolar, they have a not myelinated, and their cell body is separated as from a process like structure, and the terminal button away from their normal condition, and the dendrites are also away from the cell body. And multipolar, the neuron, there is a normal neuron, as we see the normal structure of neuron, as they are multipolar neurons, is an ideal structure of neuron. They have a dendrites, cell body, soma, and is also there is axons, and there is axon terminal buttons. All right. Now the functional classification of neuron. As we discussed before, the sensory neuron and motor neuron, they have two divisions. What is the sensory neuron? They carry impulses from receptor to CNS, and the motor neuron, they carry impulses from CNS to target organ. This is our brain and this is the spinal cord. So sensory neuron carry information to the brain, and the motor neuron carry information from brain to spinal cord. So this is the basic function of functional neurons, the types of functional neurons. Now the summary of this presentation. Nervous system is entirely control many body functions, and CNS is consist brain and spinal column. PNS is nerves in the limbs or organ. PNS also divided into sensory and motor, or the somatic and autonomic nervous system. The neurons. Neurons are nerve cells that control sensory input. Why we call sensory input? Because it inputted in just like, because it input, and motor output, it means it out from the spinal cord and it go to the spinal cord. So this is input and this is output. So nerves, sensory input and motor output. Thank you, and thank you so much for watching this at the end, because it's give me a very confidence and motivation if you watch my video full. And please like, comment and share with your friends, and please suggest what I have to be increase in this, and to make this effective, more effective. Thank you so much again.